Gentlemen and gentlewomen, welcome back to another episode of Barrier Breach. In this series, we take the camera out of bounds and explore off-camera secrets in some of our favorite horror games. Today, we will be exploring the infamous, iconic, and classic Nun Massacre. This is a game I know many of you have been asking to see, and I will deliver because I love splashing you guys in the face with my content. This episode of Barrier Breach will also go over the various different levels and retextures of the Nun, so don't worry, we got everything covered. Anyways, let's not waste any time. We out! So most puppet combo games usually have a still image of the game cover as a menu screen, and although that's great and true to the PS1 retro style, the ones that have a 3D menu are so much more immersive and memorable. Very similar to Stay Out of the House, Nun Massacre also uses the same philosophy upon greeting you on startup. By enabling the free cam, we can finally zoom out and have a look at this iconic menu environment, and I'm sure many of you would be excited to view this from different angles. Here you can see that the menu is contained within this tiny little cube that rotates clockwise out in the middle of goddamn nowhere. One thing I'm sure many of you weren't expecting is this combination of different models all stacked up on top of each other. If you take a closer look, you will actually see that these are little renders of the different levels that we as the player can choose from when playing Nun Massacre. If you didn't know, Nun Massacre received a definitive edition update on May 31st, 2022, where Puppet Combo added 3 other levels called the Circus, the Factory, and the Backrooms, which were retextured versions of the original Nun Massacre experience with small additions and changes in each of those levels. It seems Puppet Combo put them here as a placeholder for when you actually go through the level select. Of course, the way our camera is fixed will never allow us to see this in game, but it's very cool knowing those 3D renders are placed slightly above the camera and just barely out of view. Here we have the regular Nun, the Circus level, the Backrooms level, and the Factory level. Another really cool thing I found during my time messing around with the settings was the Butcher model that's actually secretly placed here and invisible the whole time. If any of you had any reason to think the Nun and Butcher were secretly lovers, then here you go. Now I'm gonna be real with you all. I have no idea why the Butcher is here. This isn't even your game, bro. What is bro doing here? The Butcher is also T-posing for some reason, so that's cool, I guess. Bro thought he could trick us by trying to be the Cross. You are not fooling anyone. One more time, here's all the different models merged together with the addition of the Butcher. I also added another cube that spins even faster than the original, and it has me feeling like I'm off the perk 5 million. Also, if you haven't noticed, I removed the PSX filter that the game forces upon you, so this might be the first time any of you get to see this game and the Nun with full clarity. Finally, here's the menu environment in its base form, without any models. So yeah guys, just like Stay Out of the House, very cool being able to see this menu from different angles. I know it's not the most impressive or intricate thing ever, but it's still very nice to know how the whole thing looks like from a distance. To start things off, we have Miss McDonald's home. So as you can see, this environment is pretty small, but I figured we still go through it anyways. First, I wanted to go into Jane's room, which we don't really get an opportunity to explore in the game ourselves due to an invisible wall. One thing I didn't notice my first time playing was this body on the bed with the feet sticking out. I tried seeing what's under the blanket, but it seems that there's nothing under there, and the body poking out is simply just part of the blanket's model. Here's the Bongo Clown, and besides that, that's pretty much it for this room. So when you're playing Nun Massacre, there are 2 rooms in the home that you're not able to get into, and as you can see, it's because there's nothing there. You can see that both doors lead into the void, and there's not even a model for the room. Moving on to the actual main part of the game, we have the outside of the school, and it's quite vast as you can see. Really quick, I just wanted to show you all that Miss McDonald's home is actually contained within this same environment, but placed really far away and out of the player's view. Going back to the mountain area, we see our spawn point and the car Miss McDonald used to get here. I know there's usually a bunch of trees and stuff, but I couldn't get them to spawn since my player actually fell off of the map and the trees actually despawn when the player's dead. Moving forward a little bit, we see our first instance of a ghost nun, which I'm sure many of you have all seen while running up this mountain. It turns out that it's not actually the original nun model, but rather a really darked out and shaded version of it. It looks really weird now because I enabled some brighter lighting, but in game you would never be able to get this close enough to even notice this. A little bit farther up the hill, we get to see our second ghost nun, and it's pretty much the same thing. I always thought there was just one of these ghost nuns, but it turns out there's another on the hill, but I'm pretty sure many of you have encountered this one as well. Finally, we have our third and last ghost nun, which we see peeking out from the corner of one of the buildings. It's so cool finally being able to get up close to all of these nuns, and I'm sure this is the first time many of you guys are seeing this nun in this form. Kinda creepy just seeing her like this. Finally, the last thing of interest is this second car further up the hill. Before we head into the school, I just wanted to give you all some footage of the entire school from a distance. When playing in game, this whole section feels so large and big compared to us, but by zooming out, we can finally get a full grasp of the general dimensions and shape of the entire thing. Here you can see that the inside is hollow for obvious reasons. I think it's really informative and interesting being able to see the environments of our favorite games from different angles and from way far out. It really makes you view the game differently, and really makes you appreciate all the time game developers put into making the experience feel genuine with what little they have. So usually the Nun Massacre map is pretty dark, like extremely dark. So I started off by enabling all the lights on the map, as you can see. It's very cool seeing this map slowly light up, and it's going to make it a ton easier for us to visualize the layout of the school. First, I wanted to begin this exploration with the nun, because I know that's what many of you are probably here to watch. One thing I never knew was that the nun actually spawns and starts off at the bottom floor of the school. It's not like she spawns at random parts of the map. She starts here every single time you load into the school. She usually stands there for several minutes before finally patrolling the halls. Just like the butcher from Stay Out of the House, the nun actually explores the entire map and never despawns. She's always fully rendered and wandering the halls with no real set path or logic to where she goes. Usually, the only times we get to see the nun is when she catches us and is on our cheeks, so it's insanely interesting being able to finally get up close and personal to her and follow her around. I know this game terrifies a lot of you, myself included, but I hope showing you this kinda makes you appreciate the game a little more, and I'm sure it's very satisfying finally being able to watch the nun and what she does without the threat of her attacking and scaring you. So yeah, like I said, the nun literally goes everywhere and no place is off limits to her. So one very common fact about the nun is that she's able to teleport, and for the longest, I'm pretty sure all of us just took it as it was and agreed. But I'm here to finally confirm this theory. As you can see, the nun literally vanished from thin air right in front of our eyes. You can see that this caught me off guard and I tried looking for her, and I eventually did, but this time she was at a different part of the school. I actually caught the nun teleporting again, but this time I was able to find her relatively quickly. This specific clip was not cut or edited, as I wanted to show you in real time that she actually does have this ability for those who didn't think she did. Really quick, here's some close-ups of the nun. For the first time in blindfire channel history, I'm actually gonna stop yapping and just let some of the footage play out. Don't worry, I'll be back soon for the next section, but here's the rest of the clips I've gathered of the nun. Now that we got to see the nun's travel path, I think it's time we show some love to the rest of the map. Although I'm sure some of you are very familiar with the school, there are some rooms that are locked off, and I know many of you have asked me to explore them. So that's what I plan on doing for this next section. So the first locked door I wanted to check out was actually the room the nun goes to at the bottom floor, which is locked off, of course. Here you can see the nun making her way to this door, which is inaccessible to the player. It's just an empty room that the nun uses to cool off for a bit before heading back out. She just stands there for about a minute before moving again. One thing I would like to mention is that the nun can actually teleport from this area to any part of the map. I actually thought that the door had a small flat black texture to represent darkness, but here you can see that the room itself is legitimately blacked out. Finally, we can see the nun regain her consciousness and head back out. The next closed off area I wanted to show you all is in the vents that lead into the room with all the mannequin parts and spikes. There is a drop off that prevents you from going any further, and I wanted to see what was on the other side. And there's really not much there. You can see how the vent cuts off and stops right there and doesn't lead to or circle back to any further vents. Next, I wanted to show you all the locked door in Jane's room, which I'm sure many of you are curious about. To my surprise, it's actually a fully rendered room, but with nothing in it, of course. I know it's pretty underwhelming, but I thought all of you deserve to see what lies beyond the locked door anyways. Next, we have a staircase that I wanted to show you, located on the 4th floor. There's a gate that prevents you from going any further, and it's for a good reason. You can see that this staircase leads into an empty floor, and there's nothing else past it. Finally, I wanted to show you all another staircase located at the medical part of the school, and it's very similar to the previous one. As you can see, the staircase cuts off abruptly and sort of connects to one of the classrooms on the top floor. Perhaps Puppet Combo had intentions of connecting it to this room, or maybe it was just part of the level design. In this next section, I briefly want to go over the large vent system that plays a crucial role in beating the game. I'm sure you can all agree that these vents and the many paths that branch off of them can be very confusing, so hopefully this section helps you all visualize the layout of it a little bit better. First, I wanted to show you all the specific tunnel, which of course gives you one of the endings. As you all know, once you find yourself stuck, a little person with a bright light makes their way towards you and restarts your game. Here we can see that this little person is actually placed way further back, waiting until you get stuck before it begins moving. This model actually has an idle animation as well, which you can see. Next, we have the vents that lead into the "You Are Forgiven" ending. You might notice instantly that the vent cuts off just short of the room with the mini nun and hanging bongo clown. I believe that Puppet Combo placed a teleport trigger just at the end, which causes our player to be placed in that room. Finally, you can see the staircase that leads into the bright light that gives you the ending. The last thing I wanted to show you all was another vent ending, where you as a player get stuck, unable to get out as the nun peeks out and watches you. Here is where it is relative to the rest of the map. Before we look at the other scenarios, here's a quick section where I show off everything. I know most of you already know how each of the rooms look like, so I just wanted to show you everything from a distance. Again, I'm going to briefly go away and let you all have a look at it yourselves. So this next section, we're going to briefly go over the other levels added in the Definitive Edition update alongside their respective nuns. This section isn't going to be that long, since I'm sure all of you know that these levels are just retextured versions of the original with slight changes. So here we have the clown version of the nun, which is the most true to the original. Everything about her appearance have been retextured to fit the circus level theme, but she's still very spooky. This is also the only version of the nun that spawns at this staircase, since of course, we as a player begin the circus level at the most bottom floor. I'm not going to show that much since you've already seen how the nun works, but here you go nonetheless. So I actually died mid-gameplay, and it caused the nun to glitch out and continue attacking my player. I don't know what she's on, but she's tweaking. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you all the Bald Nun. Yeah, I was able to remove her veil and her gown, so here's what that looks like. Wrapping up the circus level, I'm just going to show you all the entire map. Next up, we have the factory level. Here you can see the driller nun in all of her glory. As mentioned earlier, every nun except for the circus one spawns right here at the beginning of every playthrough. This, alongside the backrooms nun, are the only nuns to have a drastically different model, which is very neat. Prepare your eyes as I show you all the driller nun without her gown. This caught me so off guard, to be honest. I don't know what I was expecting, but it definitely wasn't this. Why is she so lanky though? Here's the driller nun without her drill. And finally, here's the Driller Nun without her veil. Okay, so as promised, here's some footage of the Driller Nun roaming the halls. I'm just gonna shut up and let you watch. Something really weird I found was that the nun actually targets the player after a while, regardless of how far they are. Here you can see that the Driller Nun enters the tunnel and begins chasing me for some reason. Keep in mind, I haven't moved from the top floor where we spawn at. She finally finds me and then kills me. Finally, wrapping up the factory level are some camera shots of the entire map. Finally, we have the last level, which is of course the backrooms. We of course spawn at this spot, which means the backrooms nun is allowed to spawn at the bottom floor as suspected. So it might be very hard to see because of the pixelated nature of this nun, but it's actually the Driller Nun model, but without the drill on her right hand. I actually did not know this at all until I got really close to her, but it's pretty neat seeing the Driller Nun model reused in this way. I'm gonna make this really brief since it's hard to see, but here's the backrooms nun wandering to school. Finally, I'm going to finish this section with some shots of the backrooms level from the outside. I know it's pretty much the same thing as every other level, but here you can truly see how yellow and backrooms like the entire map is now. Everything down to the vents and tunnels have been made yellow to fit the vibe. Wait, really quick before the outro, I wanted to show you all this level but with all the other levels and their various differences merged together. As you can see, I added a ton of things that are not originally in the normal level, and it looks pretty cursed. You can see furniture, paintings, and doors that are glitched onto the map, as well as various obstacles exclusive to certain levels. Okay everybody, that is going to do it for this edition of Barrier Breach. I know there is demand for other puppet combo games, but Nun Massacre is easily the most requested and asked for video. I really hope I was able to fully grab the essence of this game and display it for you all in an enjoyable fashion. As always, many more videos on the way as well as live streams. It's been your boy Blind, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. I'll catch you all in the next one. See ya.
Shawty